Hi, good evening. Welcome to Neighborhood News. I'm John Sylvia. Neighborhood meeting tonight, so I'm going to be doing this solo, but do have a guest. But before I introduce our guest, I would just like to go over something that I've seen in the last couple months. I know we're all busy in our lives to get somewhere quick. We have our families to take care of. I would wish if everybody could just think of back in the 60s when JFK, what can you do for your country? Ask what not your country can do for you, but it's important to note that even now you can make a difference. You can make a difference just by waving at someone when they let you go. We all know that, or checking in on a neighbor, saying hi to people. A lot of times here in Fall River, people say hi. So just simple things like that, and we don't know purposes, but I'm a firm believer that we're all put here for a reason. That just saying hi could have been your purpose, or being kind to someone, or helping the city with some kind of thing that's going on, cleanup, or a tree planting. So there's this city, and I wish we could just look at that, and I think if we a good thing, this city, the country, and the world would be a better. Enough with my rant. Our guest tonight is Cathy Ann Viveiros. She is the city administrator here in Fall River, which I'm sure most folks are aware. Welcome, Cathy.
Good evening, John, and that was a very nice introduction.
Thanks.
So we wish more people were a little bit more, right. And patience. Yes, patience is a virtue, as they say, right?
Exactly.
That's absolutely.
Well, you have a lot on your plate. You just stepped into back, and I'm sure it was kind of like running on. But I wanted to start with one thing that's our neighborhood in Niagara is the Watapa Heights project that fight for a few years. So I know that there's some, and I just wondering if you could just explain what's going on.
Sure, happy to provide an update for you, John. Okay. And working with the Neighborhood Association for some time, and when appointed to my position, had a conversation with the mayor about in total agreement that if there were any way for us to get back to it as it was originally envisioned, those 26 singles, that would really be the optimum. So at that point, we got to work trying to determine the current status of the project. Because of a analysis that was done, it started back in '09, so it was a little bit dated forward, and what is currently being challenged is splitting the parcel basically into two components, constructing rental units on that portion, and then would be the creation of 11 single-family homes. Again, for that, we felt very strongly that was not what we fought very hard back in 2002 for a home concept, so we got to work. And very happy to say that due to the strong support of our legislative delegation, and I can't stress this enough, Representative Carol Fiola, Representative Alan Sylvia, Representative Paul Schmidt, and Senator Michael Rodrigues all sat down with the city representatives and the Department of Housing and Community Development and basically said to them, we want those 26 single-family homes. And we made a strong case that the replication, very quickly when the act was passed, the understanding is that the city would replicate the units that they were demolishing, the 100 units, other locations in the city. The city has in fact done that and actually has recreated over 200 units. And so we feel we're on a sound basis to say to them, look, let's go back to those 26 single-family homes. So what they said to us is, well, we want to make sure that 26 single-family homes, affordable, which was the concept in the original act, is viable. So that's where we are right now. And that, at this point, it'd be nice to show our graphic because what we have done is we've succeeded in laying out on the existing Watapa site 26 individual house lots. And just so folks can get their bearings, and help me with this, John, if I mess it up. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, the vertical section is Warren Street, and the horizontal that's on the other side of the property, I believe, is Rodman Street, and then it looks like Buffington comes up
along the top?
Yeah, along the top vertically.
Yeah,
so,
very good. So where Buffington comes in at the top and crosses Rodman, you see the road actually continues through the Watapa parcel. And while that's not an existing roadway and was used primarily just for Watuppa, we believe that all of the underground utilities, the water, the sewer, are all there. So that's going to really help us make the project affordable. So you can see that gray line running through the parcel, and the house lots that have been created are allowed by zoning. Okay. And the smaller ones in the lighter beige are envisioned to be single-family residences. The ones in more of the darker beige tan color are able to accommodate either duplex units, or if necessary, we could go to triplex. And what the Department of Housing and Community Development has said to us is, prove to us that it's a financially viable project with the 26 single-family homes. So we started with the layout as you see it. Ken Fiola from the Office of Economic Development is putting together a market analysis. We're very comfortable that we are going to be able to sell 13 of those units to people who fall 80% below median income, and an additional 13 units will be sold to people who fall below 50% median income. And to accomplish that, we're not only looking at some incentives and some first-time home buyer monies, also through CDA has a program, some of the banks have a program, but additionally, we have given veteran preference. And we know that the veterans do have access to incentives to help them get into their own home. So we are very excited that this is going to be a very nice development. You can see there's a lot of open space on the individual house lots. They are, again, in conformance with the zoning. I would also like to note that the large green strip that you see there is envisioned to be open space. Right. So we're going to be able to put some recreational opportunities there for the benefit of the entire Niagara Neighborhood Association. And we're very optimistic that it is going to be financially feasible. So we're planning to send this up to DHCD, hopefully within a month. Okay, cool. And if they're convinced that the project is viable, we're very confident that our replication of units is going to be acceptable to them. And we're hoping that this is going to be the future of the Watuppa Heights. Cool.
So as far as that open space, is that part of that development? So it's going to be there. Are they going to be responsible to keep that up, or will that go back to the city?
Well, and we have to look at that. Okay. It's going to be developed by the developer, whoever completes the project. But because the individual lots are going to be sold, there won't be a developer ultimately. Okay. The developer is just facilitating the sale. So my guess would be we'll probably take a portion of that, create some recreational facilities for the neighborhood that will be open to everyone, and then they may very well have to be accepted by the city as part. But at least they'll start new, and they'll have amenities that the neighborhood can all enjoy, and ultimately would probably be the responsibility of the city to maintain.
That's great. Well, and you know how you mentioned the whole veterans thing. I know I never financed a house through the VA, but it is a good thing. I wish I would have did it when I had the opportunity, because when we had this whole crash back in the 80s, the VA would let you refinance even if you were in the hole on the house when the market dropped. So I didn't realize that. I got talked into this from a banker that said, no, you don't need to go through the VA, it takes too long. So, you know, there's usually no points, no down payment. So it does make it a lot more affordable for veterans. So
let me take opportunity to thank you for your service, John.
No, it was during peacetime, so it was not. I just wanted to give you.
Well, but even still, it's a time out of your life when you have to put everything on hold to make that commitment. So
I appreciate that.
But we are excited about the veteran preference and, again, the affordability. We're very optimistic it's going to be a financially viable project. So can't wait to get started now. Having said that, I can't pass up the opportunity. We may need some assistance from neighbors, from people within the community. DHCD hasn't made a decision yet. So we may very well be calling on you for letters of support, and again, hoping to convince them that this is really what's right for Fall River.
No, I agree. You know, it's funny because Mike Dion has his survey going out, and I'm a big supporter of having more owner-occupied, because obviously folks are going to have more of a vested interest in this community, and that gives folks the opportunity that that cannot afford to pay $250 or $230 for a house. So I think that's great. I mean, and I think I've spoke with you about this in Dartmouth. I know in South Dartmouth, and then Swansea, Smoke Rise Circle, that whole area, that was created as low income. And the houses, like it's like any neighborhood. You got some houses that are well taken care of, and some that aren't. So it's like any other neighborhood, but it gave folks the opportunity to get in and buy a house.
And when you look at the possibility of creating some duplex units, keep in mind the land is free. The land is owned by the Housing Authority, and we're going to be able to develop it. So if you look at what it might cost someone to build and/or buy a home in Fall River, it's easy to get a nice home for $220,000 maybe,
it's
and that's including land. So if you back out the cost of the land, we're very apt, and especially the duplex units, we think might very well be for sale with as low as $75,000 or $80,000.
Wow,
so
fantastic.
So we're very optimistic. These are going to be
great.
financially viable.
That's
so
great.
we can't wait to get started on it. But again, we'll
that's
get back to you if we need your help on
no,
this.
that's great.
good.
I mean, like you said, the two-family house, you could have two families get together in the same family and do that, and that's probably cheaper than they're paying for rent right now between the.
Well, and it's similar to a condo complex, or the traditional duplexes as we remember them. Everybody owns their unit, but they're just connected, which saves a little bit on the construction cost.
And I think it's probably better than a condo because you have walls. You don't have somebody above you. Because I lived in a condo, you get somebody above you, below you, aside, and it can be a nightmare at times.
Just a simple duplex, or again triplex if needed for financial viability. But again, you can tell. Not a very densely packed development,
that's great.
So great opportunity. So we're looking forward to it.
Cool.
Hoping we can prevail with it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I hope it does go through. I think that's what we have to move toward here in the city is to get more owner-occupied folks on the rolls and paying taxes, but more importantly, being involved in trying to make the city better. So great. I appreciate that.
Good.
No, that's great. So you guys are working hard.
We are on a number of fronts. Trying to keep everything moving forward. And we talked earlier about the budget, and it's very easy to get mired down in the finances and the numbers. We've got some significant challenges that we're working through, but we are finding time to continue to move forward on initiatives like Watupper and some other economic development initiatives
that's great.
We're working with partnering with other groups. We did the solid waste, as you know.
Yeah.
Comprehensive review, and I'm actually finalizing the cost-benefit analysis on that. So I'm guessing within the next week or two we'll be able to let folks know how that all came about. So a lot going on.
Yeah, cool. And this is not anything. This is not the administration's opinion. My opinion has always been, and I get hollered at every time I mention this, but the pay-as-you-throw thing. I know people don't want to hear this, but it's better than having taxes raised, and I don't know if everybody realizes, and Cathy can probably reinforce what I'm saying, I guess, or just verify, that we are going to start paying $59 a ton for trash. Recycling is $22 a ton. We weren't paying this before, right? I mean,
no,
we had the landfill.
because we own the landfill.
So
we had an agreement with the landfill.
Yeah, we had an agreement and got a subsidized rate, it appears. So. Personally, I would much rather have my tax dollars spent towards schools, police, firemen, and other city services than sending it to trash. And it's really easy to do this, and this is something you have control over. And it's better than a tax increase. Although people have told me they'd rather have their taxes increased, I find that crazy because that's usually $100, $200. You can probably only pay $50 a year for these bags if you recycle, and I look at it as myself too. I own 2 houses, and we all recycle there. And unless something's being cleaned up, we have like 1 barrel, and some weeks no trash at all, just recycling. So folks that like myself, and there are many of us out there, we're subsidizing people that are refusing to recycle. So it's just something to think about. Change is tough. But everybody else is doing this, and we all know that we say this can't happen here in Fall River. It's not going to work here in Fall River, but it's funny that everybody does come out and support things. These new barrels they said weren't going to work, and look what happened. It works. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind.
And again, to that point, what happened, we were really forced to take a look at alternatives because the city had been receiving $1.7 million in host fees from Allied Republic that owned the landfill, BFI, and because the landfill's closing, we not only lost that $1.7 million in revenue, but additionally, to your point, everything now that we bring that is regular trash, we have to pay $60 to $64 per ton for.
Okay.
So if we can increase the recyclables and get down that regular trash, it's going to have a huge impact.
No, I agree. And you know, it's funny, I know you were there when that company came in, Waste Zero, and basically Worcester had implemented that program. And they said it wouldn't work in Worcester. And Worcester is probably about 180,000 people approximately. So it's probably as big as Providence, I think, when you drive through there. And it worked there, and they have a lot of multifamilies there. I know I used to work with people that lived in Worcester. So it's really comparable to Fall River. I think if not, they probably had a tougher time because there are a lot more people. And it worked there. It's funny how people will comply with things. If you give them an explanation as to why this has to be done, you know, most reasonable people will say, yeah, this is just a cost of having to live. So I think for the future generations, recycling is the way to go. We can't keep on dumping things in a landfill or sending it to someone else's hometown like they've done to us for the last 20 or 30 years because we were having free trash pickup. We thought that was okay. And we're finding out that it probably wasn't okay, but hopefully we decide to go get on board. Hopefully everybody gets on board. If it's not something that happens now, something that happens in the future, because I think it's going to save us money. And you know, it's funny, Cathy, with this whole thing, and I don't mean to spend a lot of time on it, but other people have told me this, and I've done the same thing. When you're talking to someone that's against it, why are you against it? They can't give you a clear explanation as to why they're against it. So I think it's just that mindset that I have to pay money for a bag.
Sure.
You know, but we'll go to Dunkin' Donuts and spend $2 on a coffee every day, if not more than once, 2 or 3 times a day. So, so it's just something to think about, and it's going to help us in the long run.
And it certainly is an option, as I said, that not only helps us to recycle, but get our costs down too as well. So that's important. And
that's another thing that's going to help your city.
Right. Absolutely.
But so as far as, I know there's been a lot of talk too, Cathy, you know, when you're talking to different folks, we had the whole big summit or meeting with folks on the budget, and I think that was very helpful to put it out there and let people know this is what is happening. But then, you know, a couple weeks later, you were able to knock that deficit down from like 16 million to 3 million. And I think, you know, with anything, there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Sure.
So I know I didn't let you know to get the formal numbers here, and I apologize for that, but you know, nobody's going to hold you to any specific, you know, 1,100,033 cents or whatever. We're not going to do that, but just, I think, to give folks an idea of, you know, how this came about. And I believe like one thing was the GIC that will probably be implemented, right?
Yes, absolutely. And again, we're going to talk in round numbers, which I appreciate, but we're going to get there.
Okay.
When we recognized the size of the deficit, it was, and again, it's technically a gap. It's not a deficit until you are actually in the midst of the budget. We were getting ready for 2015. The 16 million was a combination of things. We lost the 1.7 million from the host fees. That was gone. State aid actually dropped by several $1,000,000 because of the charter school calculation and because the state didn't choose to fully fund the charter schools. We had some issues with increases in budgets. We've been trying to increase the staffing level in the police department. We lost the SAFER grant, so we had to put over $1 million into that department, which was creating a void for us, and other things as well. So what we started to do was, one item at a time, start to look at how we could pare that number down. And the administration, the mayor, is obligated to give the city council a balanced budget. That's due to happen on June 1st, and we will give them a balanced budget. We have my pledge to that effect. And so we started looking at a number of different initiatives. You mentioned the GIC. The GIC is an insurance program that is run by the state of Massachusetts. It has a very, very large number of people who are part of it, and it includes our state legislators, our housing authority, the Bristol County, the District Attorney's Office, I believe the Sheriff's Department. I mean, there were a huge number of other cities and towns who are all part of the Group Insurance Commission that the state runs. We had to do some numbers to determine whether or not this was the savings for us. One of the steps was for us to figure out if we could take our existing insurance, make changes, plan design its cost, and achieve the same savings. We ran those numbers, and when all was said and done, we clearly stood to gain a savings of approximately $7 million. Now that's the city side. Yeah. The employees will save approximately $2 million because their premiums will be lower than they would be right now. The city is self-insured. So we're looking at, for the first half of FY 2015, we're going to be able to save approximately $3.5 million because we're only going to be in for half a year. We can't take effect until January of 2015. Additionally, we did have some surplus revenues in our stabilization fund. So, and these are all options at this point, but just to let you know how we're working about it. So we've made a decision that we need to take $3 million there and apply it to the current budget. Taxes, raising taxes by the 2.5% that's allowed. Clearly, it's not something anybody wants to look at, but given the one of the financial team referred to it as Fall River's financial perfect storm. Everything just came crashing down on us the same year. So raising taxes will generate about $2 million if we go to the max. We did make some reductions in the police department budget. We kind of slowed their growth a little bit to help. All of the other municipal departments other than schools, police, and fire were cut down to essentially level funding with some variation in there. That saved $1 million. And I'm happy to report that we managed, we did get about $600,000 extra in state aid because of the charter school formulation. So long and short of it, we're down to about $3 million gap, but we still have options on the table. We have not made a decision yet on pay-as-you-throw, which we estimate could raise somewhere between $3 and $4 million, depending upon what we charge for the bags and also the reduction in the tipping fees. Additionally, we are working with the school department to take their special education transportation in-house, and we think there are upwards of $3 million that can be saved with that initiative. So we're looking at that. We are working with our state legislative delegation. They are trying to fully fund the charter schools, which would mean a substantial infusion of dollars. So we've almost closed the gap, and that's important because anything that we can do once we close that gap, we can work at bringing back some of those additional firefighters. Right now, they're at 153. I think there's acknowledgement across the board that that's really not a good number for our fire department. So once we close that gap, we can start adding back firefighters.
Yeah, and this is something on one of those numbers, the GIC. I know I've heard a lot of folks complaining about that, and some of the information that's got out there. Like under that GIC, you could pick, like, do they have Harvard Health? And
yes, they do. Harvard Pilgrim.
Okay, all right. And you know, I was hearing folks say that their costs are going to go up, their co-pays. And I work for the feds, so we get insurance even into retirement, which nobody else does but the state, city, and feds. Those are the only folks that do that. And right now, our insurance costs, like co-pays, I heard they were $10 with the city. I haven't seen a $10 copay in like 20 years. Ours are right now $25 and $35. And prescriptions, they fluctuate. It depends on what you take. So, I think everybody knows, even in retirement, most folks don't have health insurance in retirement. They get their Medicare and they have to have a supplement. So I know, even working for the feds, and I've done retirements with folks that they know their costs are going to go up. There's no control that health insurance costs are not going to go up. They're going to go up, and their co-pays might change. And quite honestly, they're usually really thankful that they can keep that. That was a recruitment tool that we had that we could use to say, hey, you can have this, because nobody had that in the private sector. So I think that, and I just want to get that out there, that the stories I've heard is that, people are going to now pay $50 or $100 for a prescription, and I'm like, how is that possible if it's like a Harvard Health? It made it sound like it was just some kind of government program where, you know, it wasn't Harvard Health and all these other programs. So this is just something that I've observed, and I just wanted to, you know, get that out there with that.
And part of our plan, John, is to, at the City Council's request, we're going to actually be making a presentation before the City Council. So, because you're right, there is a lot of, I don't want to say misinformation because I don't think it's intentional.
Yeah.
We need to do an educational initiative to help people to understand it, and we're hoping to get testimony from people who are in the GIC to be able to speak to the fact that it is affordable. Certainly, some of the co-pays do go up slightly, but the monthly premiums are coming down. So I think
it does balance.
There can be a balance, exactly.
And I work in HR, and you know, we would have that. I used to do, you know, health benefits years ago, and folks would come in and say the health benefits here are terrible. I said, well, you have to be an informed consumer and say what is best for you. You know, as folks get older, they want a better prescription plan. Mine, I have a very low prescription plan because I don't really need it at this point. But this is just stuff you have to look at and be a consumer that knows what plan is best for you. And I think that's something that we all have to, you know, it's maybe because we always had one plan here with the city, and I'm not sure if that's, you know,
typically been Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Now, it's funny, I have Blue Cross, never had it before. I've had it for the last 10 years, but never had it before. And I had to get rid of Harvard Health because they didn't offer it anymore. So it's all what you're used to, and I think, again, it's just kind of tell folks that this is what's new, and really look to see what's available for you, you know?
And the people that we've spoken to that are in the GIC, I mean, I haven't run into one that hasn't been very happy and very satisfied with the program. They do offer 12 different plans. And to your point, John, I think that's going to be the challenge. People are going to have to do their homework. They're going to have to figure out which plan is best for them based on the hospitals they use, the doctors that they have. But we're pretty confident that once people get used to it and get to learn about it, that they're going to be satisfied.
They're probably going to be, because right now for a family, what does Blue Cross cost? Do you know approximately a month?
We budget $25,000 per year for a family plan, and I think it's about 16 or 18 for an individual plan.
Okay. So what do the employees pay? Roughly
they pay 25% of the total. So so there's a 25, you know, 75-25 split.
So they're paying like at least $400 a month, roughly, it sounds like.
And to that point, the GIC, because there are so many members, they have such negotiating power. And that's a big part of how they can save their money. This year, the GIC only went up by 1%. Wow. And they're anticipating their increase the following year will only be 1%. And while this year we had a good year, but in the past 6% increases were not uncommon. So I mean, we've got to slow the growth of that expense.
No, I agree. I agree. And
I think this past year was $55 million for health insurance. A lot of money.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think, you know, I was just trying to get a rough estimate because I think I pay roughly $300 a month, but my co-pays, you know, the co-pays are higher. I'm paying $35 when you go to anything but your primary care person, and it includes no dental at all. So it's just you want to know and get the plan. If you go to the doctor a lot, then obviously you want to get the plan with a lower copay, but you might also be paying more. So you got to look at that stuff. You know, so that was fast, Cathy. I appreciate all the information. Yeah, it sounds like they're trying to get us going here. So, well, thanks a lot again, Cathy. Appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here, John, and look forward to coming back for a future update.
Cool, great. Have a good night.